Hey, everybody, and welcome to Learning from Smart People. I am your host, Rob Oliver, and I appreciate you being here today, taking a couple minutes out of your day to hopefully learn something from a very smart person. My smart person today is Andie Monet. She is an expert business strategist who helps small business owners transform their fear and confusion into confidence and clarity by creating a roadmap for strategic growth. Andie, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, and hopefully I'll be able to teach something to someone today.
Absolutely. Listen, you know more about your topic than I do. So if no one else learns from it, I will learn. And based on that understanding, I think it's going to be something that, listen, some people are going to pick up a few nuggets. Some people are going to pick up a treasure trove of knowledge. It's all in where you're coming from and what you're looking to apply the information to. So thank you for being here. So talk to me then a little bit about the concept of, listen, this year, the word of the year has been pivot, right? And everything, it was going to be this way, and now we've had to change and do it this way. And what you're talking about is kind of making that shift, changing from confusion, changing from fear into confidence and clarity. What is the key to that transformation?
Oh my gosh, such a great question. And yes, pivot for sure. But, my big thing is clarity and then strategy and then action. So it doesn't matter what your plans are if you're not going to take action, right? But then you don't know what to take action on if you don't know what your clarity is, right? Clarity or clearness or path or vision or whatever you want to call it. And so right now I feel really like, owning a small business is hard enough as it is, right? And then you add COVID on top of it. So what do you do? How do you get out of the fear? How do you move forward? And so that's really what I do, is move people forward.
Yeah. So to you, what does that concept of clarity mean? You started into it. And I would love for you to kind of listen. I'm a dad, and I'm bad with dad jokes, but so can you clarify what clarity means to you?
Yes, absolutely. So clarity just means, I use this example all the time, so I hope it's not oversimplifying it, but I say, if you're in California and you want to go to DC, Washington, DC, what direction do you go? Well, everybody pretty much knows east, right? Well, yeah, that's true, but how many hours are you going to drive? What route are you going to take? Are you going to take the north route or the south route, or, right through the country through Route 40? Where are you going to eat? Are you going to sightsee? All of those questions. East is just one step. It's more the vision and it's the clarity. And then how literally do you get to DC is the strategy. So, it's just a direction to head. For
Okay.
me, that's how I would explain it.
Okay. So clarity is it's knowing where you want to go and kind of having a general idea of how to get there. And so you mentioned three steps. You have clarity, strategy, and action. And so the clarity is, I know where I'm going. I kind of have a general idea of how to get there. The strategy is, okay, what are the exact steps that I'm going to take? What's the purpose of my trip? And as you mentioned, I think that traveling is a great analogy, because you can, do I want to avoid the toll roads? Do I want to, as you said, sightsee? Are there things that I want to hit along the way? You've got that, but then it's kind of like, at the end of the day, when am I going to leave? Right? That's the action step that says, okay, I've got the vision for where I'm going. I've got the plan for how I'm going to get there. Now it's time to implement that plan and actually head out the door, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And they say, every journey starts with the first step, right? So what's your first step going to be? I mean, with the analogy of driving, obviously you have to get in the car, turn it on and press go, right? And that's, I feel a lot of people forget that step. It's like, you can pack all you want, you can, pack one bag, you can pack 5 bags, you can have your wallet ready, all the things. But until you actually get in the car and start moving, your journey hasn't started yet. And that happens a lot with business, which is, okay, well, I have a marketing plan and I have, I know what target market I want to reach. And you might have all of those answers, but until you actually say, make the phone call or start the social media post or put your website on or whatever it is that you're going to do, nothing's, that's the action part.
Yeah. What do you do to help people that that have those nagging obstacles or the things that they carry with them that say, like, I'm not sure if I can do this, or I had a bad experience with this in the past, or I don't think I can because of whatever the situation is. How do you help people with that? How do you work with those folks?
Oh, that's the fun part. For me, so let me tell you a long time ago, I was a tutor in college. I was an engineering and physics student. And so I was really good at math, or I still am good at math. And so a lot of people would come in, and of course, 99% of the time, people would say, I'm really bad at math, I need help. And my very first response to them, which is, you're not bad at math, you just haven't been taught it in a way that makes sense to you. And I've applied that to all of my clients. It's not that you don't understand, it's that someone needs to show it to you in a way that makes sense to you, right? So if you're stuck, one of the things that I usually ask is, sometimes it's a failure and a fear. Well, it's always fear. First of all, it's fear of failure. It's fear of losing or wasting money. It's a fear of wasting time. And so the question, you have to show them the value of it. So one example is, if it's going to cost you $5,000 to earn $100,000 in sales within the next, let's say, 3 months, is that worth it? Well, typically, yes, right?
Of course.
So there's the financial value, and then there's an emotional value too. Is what problem is it solving? Yes, it's scary. Yes, maybe it didn't work before, but how do you feel now versus how are you going to feel after it's fixed, right? And so then there's that emotional component of it. And as long as you can explain those two differences, it's usually pretty easy to get people to move forward.
Got it. And so in that way, you're looking at failure is the fear of failure is what is paralyzing. But is failure always a bad thing?
No, never. Oh my goodness. So this is just my opinion, obviously, but I think failure is a wonderful thing because there's so many ways you can grow from it, because it's a way, obviously, not to do something, or, hey, that didn't work, but maybe something else will, or not maybe, but something else will definitely work differently or better or more efficient. And, specifically with economies, it's really important because COVID, as tragic as it is, and sad and unfortunate, and that people are hurting and suffering, right? But it also creates a new environment for us where so many more people have the opportunity of working from home, not only with people who already are working, but also now we have an entirely new marketplace of people that the normal businesses can really hire from. We're talking about physically disabled or in a wheelchair, or maybe moms who only can work 4 hours a day. And so it opens up this huge opportunity because of a failure in our system, whether it's health or medicine or financial or whatever. And so there's always, I feel, a silver lining behind any failure, or it's something that you don't expect to be happening.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I'm hearing you say is that failure is ultimately a learning opportunity. And
Absolutely.
When we have something that doesn't work, it's something that says, okay, this is at least tells us if we're going to go in this direction, we need to tweak what we're doing, or we need to go in a completely different direction. Are there ways to limit your exposure to failure? Or is it just kind of like to go, like, we're going all in on this, and if it doesn't work, then we'll go all in on something else? What are your thoughts on that?
So there's a couple of things. So the way I always explain it to people is it's a three-legged stool. With business, you have the money piece, you have the scope piece, and you have the time piece. So if you take a startup company, they don't have a lot of money typically. So it's going to take them longer to be profitable or successful versus somebody who maybe they have, you know, money in the bank, or they can get loans, or whatever the situation. So their path to profitability and success is going to be shortened. So their scope and their time is shortened. And the way that it relates to your question is, if a company fails, it's not the company that failed, right? It's just a piece of the company. So let's say your target, what I find, for example, with startup companies, is they don't understand the value of a target market. And so they just go everywhere. And it's like a shotgun, right? You're shooting everywhere. Somewhere you're going to make income. Well, you're going to learn slowly but surely that that's not an ideal situation. So how you minimize, or even just, you know, reduce it or ignore it complete, not ignore it, not have it happen at all, is you spend money. This goes back to the three-legged thing. You spend money to have somebody help you. You don't have to have somebody help you, but if you want to minimize or even eliminate pitfalls, or be able to foresee certain types of pitfalls or challenges, then you spend money to do that by, for example, hiring a consultant. You can totally do it on your own. So it kind of where it comes into play is, where are you willing to take that chance to either spend the money to have somebody help you, or learn it on your own? Eventually, if you do decide to learn it on your own, you're going to find the value in having somebody help. But don't do it too early, because you just don't know. Like, you're not in that place where you're willing to hire a consultant, and that's totally okay.
Sure. Okay. So I'm thinking that you're reframing the concept of failure as something not to be feared, but as a stepping stone or a building block.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the fears, is that people don't want to do that, right? But it actually helps you in the long run.
In reading a little bit about what you're doing, you're also kind of reframing people's experiences from their lives. Okay. The bad experiences, the trauma, the different things that they have gone through in their life that have been adversity. And instead of those being excuses as to why you can't succeed, there are things that can actually become your strengths. Is that properly summing up what you're talking about?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm super passionate about this, actually. And I'm actually in the middle of writing a book about it this year. But the short version of that story is that it starts when you're a child, but it also goes into a young adulthood. But there's certain things about our childhood, good or bad. It doesn't have to be bad. And I'll give you two examples, and hopefully I don't make too many people uncomfortable. But when I was 16, my mother abandoned me, and I was homeless. And so I was homeless and started finished high school at 16 and started college at 16. And that was just one of the things that I had to deal with. And so I ended up being a great problem solver, critical thinker, because I had to figure out a way to survive, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's one of my biggest strengths, which is also why I do management consulting, is that I can see solutions that the average person can't. I can problem solve better than a lot of people. I can find creative solutions, and I'm really fast, I'm really efficient, and I'm really good at it. But that's one piece of what happened to me as a child. Whereas another example is my son's father. He did not have a traumatic childhood. It was, storybook basically, but he had these wonderful adventures with his father. He helped his father build a house in the country, and a lot of other things. And his family water skied on the lake in Wisconsin. So he's an athlete, analyzer, because in the sense of the house building. And so all of these little things in our life give us these strengths that if we embrace and allow ourselves to look back on these things, can really find incredible strengths in ourselves as people, which transfer into our business.
Yeah, what you're saying makes so much sense. And it's something I definitely agree with. And that is, we all take our own experiences for granted. Like, this is just my life. This is just what I've gone through. So many of us don't view our lives as being extraordinary or all that impactful. But what you're talking about
Mm-hmm.
is every experience that you go through has an opportunity to shape who you are and to help to develop the skill set and the mindset that you have in facing life. And so in that way, your life has been, your entire life is a learning opportunity and a building opportunity.
Absolutely. And specifically going back to my situation is I tried to avoid it and, not really deal with it, and was embarrassed, quite frankly, about it. So it wasn't something I actually shared with people. But after I realized what the benefit was of it, I mean, not that we want, people to go through traumatic experiences, but
Yes.
you do learn from it, right? And there is something wonderful that comes out on the other end if, again, you're willing to take those steps.
Yeah. And listen, I understand exactly where you're coming from the perspective that when I was 21, I broke my neck in a body surfing injury. And so I use a wheelchair, and it's, no, I don't want everyone to go through what I went through. But what I learned from that experience is something that has, really given me an understanding of life that I wouldn't have had before. So in that way, I think what you and I are talking about is taking the skills and the learning and the mindset that we have developed as a result of the experiences that we've gone through, and using those as a way to help other people, as a way to give insight into life, to build solutions, and to help other people be more successful.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And our story is part of that solution too. I mean, which is a different subject, I realize, but being able to share your experiences and being able to inspire or motivate people is part of, not only part of our own journey, but on a broader scale, I think part of how we communicate and how we connect with each other on a human level, regardless of the business.
Yeah. So your skills and your understanding and all of the things that you've developed have come from your experience, and they've brought you to a point today where you're a business strategist. Okay. And we talked about that, the idea of clarity, strategy, action. And we talked about an example, but can you further explain what you mean by a business strategy? Is a business strategy like it? I'm assuming that, setting out the map and deciding what roads you want to take is in some ways an analogy for it. But can you help us give a little bit of an example or some definition to what is a business strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. So, but business strategy often gets confused with a business plan. And just from first of all, an overarching standpoint, a business plan is more often used for startups and what's going to make you successful. It's more of a, you're looking for a business loan. It doesn't tell you how you're going to do it. Whereas a strategic plan gives you much more in-depth information, and not about, hey, I'm great, hey, this is how I'm going to do wonderfully, but it's an internally used document. So for example, now of course getting more into detail, is there's three ways to grow your business and be more profitable. You can increase sales, which that's the one everybody always goes to, because who doesn't like more sales, right? But there's also reducing costs, but not just blatantly reducing costs like, hey, we're going to spend less on toner, but more strategic in the sense of what are your cost of goods, what's the cost of your goods to produce what you produce, whether it's service or product, it doesn't matter. Do you really need, the more data you have, the more you can be strategic about what costs to cut. So there's increasing sales, decreasing costs, but there's also, which a lot of people don't realize until they're really strapped for money, is streamlining processes and improving efficiencies. So for example, Monster Energy is my biggest client. They're $4 billion manufacturing company, and everybody knows them because they're global. I've
Right.
worked with them so many times, and one thing that I did is reduce their overtime by over 6,000 hours per month because I streamlined their processes. And
Wow.
6,000 hours per month for a year adds up to a lot of money. So
Sure.
they didn't increase their sales, they decreased their costs by streamlining their processes. And this had all, it doesn't matter what department, but they have SEC filing requirements, and I'm trying to get them to meet those requirements faster, sooner, more efficiently. So with regard to small businesses, one very specific example is, if you're using QuickBooks, can you send an email to a client for payment, and then they can actually pay it through an email instead of you printing an invoice, putting it in the mail, mailing it, envelopes, paper, stamps, 3 days to mail. Who knows how long it's going to take them to process it, and then them sending you. So you can reduce that by 2 weeks and get cash in faster, for an
Sure.
example. Right. And
Yeah.
there's lots of examples of that, but that would be one specific example of a strategy, is, making it easier to send and receive payments from customers.
Right. Well, in some ways, I think that to kind of bring everything to where we are today, the pandemic has really forced businesses to look at those three areas, because it's much more difficult to make a whole lot more sales because right now business is just slow. And,
Yes,
you know, assessing the cost of what you're doing, but then looking at ways to become more efficient. That is really, to me, that's a form of survival, that you're looking at the areas.
absolutely.
How does the business become stronger and run leaner? And it actually is not just something that's going to help you to survive through the pandemic, but it's going to be something that helps you to be in a better place as we come out of this pandemic and have
Absolutely.
a leaner and meaner business. I love it.
Yes, most definitely.
So just, you're talking about, you talked about those three areas, and one of the areas being able to increase efficiency and that seems to be, a relatively inexpensive thing to do. Do you have some kind of low or no cost ways to also take a look at increasing sales or, increasing profitability? Are there some ideas there as well?
Always. Oh, yes, always. There's always, always, always ways to improve your business with actually at no cost, oftentimes, if you're willing to look and stretch. And again, that's where the strategy piece comes into. So one of the things I've been trying to tell a lot of people that have brick and mortar companies is to do Facebook lives and Instagram lives, where it's like you're shopping, but you're not physically there. And so they might have, if depending on what kind of merchandise they have. And I always think of the rock shop because I love those rocks, and they look like precious stones, and sometimes they're not. But take a store owner with only one person can go and take their camera and go literally through the store. And depending on if the store is too large, they can do like Jewelry Monday or Tank Top Tuesdays or whatever. And so people actually physically see your product. You want to make it easy for people to see what you have to offer. And then if you get really busy with that, you can have a personal shopper where it's just you one-on-one with one customer, where you're literally showing them around your store. And then if you want to go a step further than that, you can even, if they pick some stuff that they're interested in, you can physically bring it to their location, have them check it out, and then, of course, have a payment option on your phone available for them if they actually want to buy right then and there. I mean, there's lots of different things, right? And so another thing is, you want, again, with social media, we all kind of know that we want to be out there, but a lot of businesses are, especially when they get older in age, they don't understand the significance of social media. And so just letting people know that you exist and why you're doing what you're doing. And so my example of that, which is one of my favorite stories, but there's an artist that I met, and I saw her art, and it was nice. I liked it, but I didn't like it enough to buy it. And then I heard her story. And her
Okay.
story was, she was a drug addict, and she ended up recovering and had a child kind of all at the same time. And so it was a method of her therapy to write down all of her emotions, and then literally on that canvas that she wrote what she was struggling with, she would paint over it. And so it had so much more meaning
Wow.
when you know why she was doing it. And she's just one of my favorite artists, and her work is so beautiful once I now know where her heart is in this art, right? And
Yeah.
so, letting people know why you do what you do, I think it's super important. And the other really easy thing, which a lot of people forget, is talk to your clients. What is there something, take surveys or ask them if there's any way that you can improve, or ask them if there's any products or services that would be really beneficial for them that maybe you don't have yet. If
Sure.
you already know somebody's going to buy it, why not ask them what that is? So there's lots of little ways to really grow the business, get sales, increase your client base without money, literally.
Yeah. Fantastic. I love it. Andie, thank you so much for sharing. Listen, if people want to get a hold of you, where can they find you?
The best way is to go to one of my websites, which is Roadmap for Strategic Growth. Kind of long, I apologize. But that's where my courses are, although I am a consultant as well. But at the bottom of the first page of that website, there's a schedule, a 30-minute strategy session. Even if you want to brainstorm or want a little bit of direction, or have questions that you just want to ask, I am more than happy to guide you in the right direction. I love this. This is why I do what I do. If you don't want a consultant, I'm totally fine with that. But I really want to make a difference, especially now.
Fantastic. I will put I'll put those links in the show notes so that people can easily find you and hopefully take advantage of what you're offering there. That's a very generous offer. I appreciate it. Andie Monet, we have come to the point where we're going to do 3 questions to establish your humanity. Are you ready for these?
Absolutely.
Who was your favorite teacher when you were in school?
Oh my goodness. Mr. Jones, he was my math teacher.
Okay. Uh, what made Mr. Jones so wonderful?
Because it was algebra, and he would always stick our names into the problems in the questions. Like, if Andie drove, rode her bike 1 mile and turned right for 14 minutes, what degree did she turn, that kind of
Right.
stuff. And he just involved us in the day-to-day math questions. And my mother was bipolar, and so I just felt like this was one person who really loved us.
That's cool. I love it. Making the kids feel like they're part of the learning process. Fantastic
Mm-hmm.
idea. What is the most daring thing that you personally have ever done?
Oh, a lot. But I think that I ran my first triathlon, and I hated it, and I hate running, and I hate biking, and I hate swimming, but I did it anyway. And people would say, "Well, why did you do it?" And I said, "Because I can."
That is awesome. But you've got the certificate or whatever it is that says I did this. So yeah,
I
congratulations on that.
do.
All right.
Thank
Last
you.
question. What is the first thing that you ever learned how to cook?
Cook, well, cook well or cook at all.
What,
um,
either way.
French toast, and it was a disaster. And my brother cooked French toast great, and I wanted to, and it was just a horrible mess. But I tell you now, I cook great French toast.
Good. So what would you say is the first thing that you learned how to cook that you said like this was really, really good?
Eggs, which is weird. Because I used to always overcook them, and I'm like, I am going to figure out how to do this. And now my son's dad, he loves my eggs. I mean, that's a whole nother thing. But yes, eggs are harder than they seem. You can't cook them too fast or too slow or too hot or too cold. And do you want them fluffy? And how do you put cheese on it without burning it? And so I would say eggs.
You know, I don't think people understand the value of being able to cook simple things well.
Oh
Uh,
yes.
And so I love the concept, love what you're doing. Congratulations on being able, well, it sounds like you're doing a lot of breakfast cooking. So we've got eggs and French toast, and which, hey,
It's my favorite meal.
Listen, it's a good meal it's a good way to start with a good breakfast. And fantastic. Andie Monet, I appreciate you being here today. To all my audience, thank you for tuning in. I would encourage you to subscribe, leave us a review, drop us a line, connect with us on social media. And I will remind you, as always, that when you stop learning, you stop living. Have a great day, everybody.